I'll just take the story that you told just to kind of complete since we mentioned scholarship, and that's what I do. I can plug the scholarship into your story because the majority of those people, that you said they work for a video game magazine or whatever, some of them did. A lot of them were freelancers. In both cases, these people probably studied something like media studies, especially the freelancers. What was the joke? We're talking Gamergate was 2014, right?
Yeah.
So what was the joke? The joke was, you get a degree in something like gender studies or media studies or something, and then you're going to be a barista. No, well, probably you might be, but you're also going to be a freelancer because you think you're a great writer and you have great insights. So what are they going to start writing these sexist, racist, homophobic, blah, 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 keyword or articles about? Well, they're going to start infusing that theory. And then various touch points happen in society that then mainstream it. But what's happening is these bloggers, or freelance journalists, I should say, are essentially starting to infuse that theory into pop culture. And that theory's been cranking for 50 years, saying, by the way, guys, society actually is secretly fascist, it's secretly racist, it's secretly sexist. Critical race theory's kind of central thesis could be boiled down to racism never gets better, it just hides itself better. And then you have these little cutesy, graduates in these stupid degrees become freelance writers, and then it's keyword city, right? It's buzzword city, racist video game, racist movie, racist Dr. Seuss, racist your mom, whatever it happens to be. And one thing after another. And then these are the people who are poised to write these little fluff piece. Well, it's like the hit version of a fluff piece, right? No content. It's like a bundle of thorns or something instead of fluff. But these are the people who are going to write these things, and they start injecting the ideas of systemic racism and systemic sexism and all of these kind of critical theory ideas into the pop culture through those mediums. And that, if you go way back, that was actually Gramsci's plan, not to get heavy in theory, but Antonio Gramsci, I'm supposed to always say Albanian Italian. I said that he was Italian, which is true. And these Italian people wrote me these emails. They're like, call him Albanian Italian, please. Don't stick him to us. Don't make it. He was brilliant, actually. The guy was probably one of the sharpest minds of the 20th century. Unfortunately, he was also a communist. And he was the one who realized that you have to you have to undermine the pillars of culture in order to take over a society. And he identified those as being in religion, family, media, education, and law. So that media pillar, that's what the goal was. He said what you have to do is you have to get inside. If you want to take a pillar of culture down, you get inside of it. And you create a counter hegemony within the existing hegemony and start making it grow. And basically when you say parasite, that's what you're talking about. It's latch on and then grow the strength of that thing like a Sith or something. I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars. You're the one with the torches. But
lightsabers.
That's the idea, right? Is to get in there and to start infusing these critical ideas. So this is a plan that's been cooking up scholarly for 100 years that had actually no real way to work until all of a sudden we cooked up this. I've been thinking about this a lot lately in the last, 3 months. Social media, and then I don't know what to call it, but just kind of grubby media, little grubby articles like these different. Gawker was just a propaganda place or whatever. It got taken down.
Games of telephone articles that regurgitate the same thing written by somebody else.
Grub media.
It's called churnalism.
Churnalism, yeah. Totally.
Or urinalism, according to Jeremy Hanby, the Quartering Today.
Urinalism.
You said that the Sith were parasitic. I like that because the Sith apprentice, parasite off the master, grows strong and then kills the master.
This right there. It's like the whole Cordyceps plan.
It's basically, Emperor Palpatine taking over, becoming the Chancellor, and everyone cheers for it.
There you go.
But I'm convinced more and more regular people hate all of this.
Oh, totally. I would bet. I was talking to somebody the other day about it, and somebody said, the guy said, I think that we are in the majority. And I was like, we're not just in a majority, we're not even in a super majority. I bet it's north of 90%.
Yeah.
North of 90% of people, at best, to the degree that they're aware of it, are annoyed by it or insulted by it or think it's ridiculous.
And cowardly.
Yeah. But that's the problem.
Yeah.
I'll get to a point where I have a clear mind. I'll wake up in the morning and I'll put on Facebook or something.
That's a mistake.
I'll feel like I'm being twisted and destroyed into some dark tunnel, and I'll have to stop and put it away and leave.
That's why I used to call. It's a formal term that comes out of Jacques Derrida, postmodern philosophy. But I used to call Twitter a deconstruction machine. It deconstructs anything you put. You put for myself, a video of myself using a sword. Immediately people add Benny Hill music and try to make a joke out of it. Like you can't make a joke out of something I think is awesome. Like, it's just not going to work. Like, I know I look awesome. Just shut up. Somebody changed it into an eggplant, a giant eggplant instead of a giant sword. I'm like, I just downloaded that and like that's like a meme I share now. But
yeah, it's fun.
But no, anything you put on the internet is going on Twitter, on social media, I should say, not the internet, is going to get. I'm so stuck on the German now. It's going to get aufgehoben almost immediately. It's going to get deconstructed. It's going to get taken apart. It's going to get turned into this dialectical soup where it gets chewed up and spit back at you into broken pieces, like you said, that eventually they become the grist that goes into that closed circle of garbage media. And this is actually the process, because that crap on Twitter becomes the article that becomes your Wikipedia page.
Right, yeah. I actually made some food like this once. I have a meat processor, and I put in a nice fine steak, and then I put in some fish and some chicken, and it became a goop, and then I fed all the goop right back in, and then I fed all the goop right back in, and it became a grayish paste, and that's basically what it is. Totally, I have no idea what it is, but apparently you're supposed to eat it.
It's chicken nuggets.
Chicken nuggets. Well, I mean, it was just meat medley, meat punch. The Wikipedia thing, though, you're absolutely right.
Dude, and you know what was on my Wikipedia for a while? Like I have it's fairly new. I've only had a Wikipedia entry for a few months, and like right off the bat, somebody said like in my Wikipedia, it said, James Lindsay portrays himself as a serious commentator. He wrote a book, How to Have Impossible Conversations, and yet he goes on Twitter and makes your mom jokes. That was on my Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And then that got taken off, and then somebody else, I don't know who put it, I'm assuming a fan of mine, went on and put that James Lindsay has gigantic balls of brass.
Hey, there you go.
That was on my Wikipedia for a while. Like, this,
about
Wikipedia is the meat goop.
I'm actually, this is probably bad in the bigger picture, but I'm here for it.
Do it.
Do you know the Zeppelin story?
Tell me.
For like 7 years, my Wikipedia claimed that I invented a Zeppelin. Some kind of autonomous flying camera on a Zeppelin. And it was because, I guess, there was some writer who overheard just like we were having like a hackerspace kind of conversation about crazy ideas. And then somehow they wrote that I actually invented a Zeppelin. And then that's it. It's fact. And no matter how many times I was like, bro, I didn't invent a Zeppelin, man. It's like, what are you talking about? I bought a consumer drone, and me and my buddy hacked the drone to broadcast live footage during Occupy Wall Street. It was like one of the first times, I think maybe the first time, there was a live news broadcast via drone. We weren't working for a big corporation, so it was just online, but it was amazing. I was like flying a drone over this Occupy protest, and then it couldn't fly that long. We talked about a bunch of crazy ideas, and apparently an article came out that was total BS, that wouldn't correct it, and didn't want to correct it because it was a fun story. And then Wikipedia was like, Tim Pool invented a drone. And I was like, I didn't. And they're like, too bad, you're not reliable. So you know what? I'm here for it. I think
that was the Tim Pool blimp is what that was, right?
Yeah.
Or the good Tim blimp.
It said Zeppelin. Literally said Zeppelin modification or something. So look,
Tim Zeppelin.
I want to preserve the important cultural institutions that have helped bring about civil rights, real social justice. But at this point, I think the entire system, it's already falling apart. The Jenga tower is in free fall.
That's a perfect metaphor. It's these guys are just knocking pegs out, and it's only a matter of time till the thing falls down.
So you think accelerationism is where it's at?
What I'm maybe a little bit, but not necessarily.
It's very targeted. I think I know where you're going.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. Wikipedia is fundamentally broken. Yes. And it's extremely susceptible to attack right now.
Yeah.
But there's a I wouldn't call it accelerationism, but an opportunity to prove the paradox.
Ridikipedia.
Well, so here's what happened, right? I tweeted "Impeach the Queen."
Yep.
We talked about it the other night, and a NewsGuard certified website wrote an article saying Tim Pool calls for the impeachment of Queen Elizabeth. People supported him, saying let's convene Congress. Like this person who wrote it was one of the worst journalists imaginable. Didn't understand you can't impeach the Queen, that Congress has no power, even if you could, to interfere with another country's monarch, wrote the article. And then here's the best part. On Wikipedia, they're actually arguing over whether or not it should be included. And for a while, somebody put it in, and they tried to take, like Tim Pool has called, in 2021, Tim Pool called for the impeachment of Queen Elizabeth. And then people are like, we have to put it in. Other people are like, you can't put it in. And then someone actually linked the video where I was laughing saying, I made the whole thing up. I know how this system works. And I can make a joke, and then Wikipedia must treat it as fact. So you have one faction saying, we know he's basically, screwing around and it was a joke tweet. There's a wink meme on it. And then someone saying, we don't have the right to choose what we determine is true or false. That's original research and it's banned on Wikipedia. You have to go by the sources, and NewsGuard has certified the source. The whole thing is broken.
That's totally broken. Ridikipedia, that's the name of this project.
What, you're working on a project called...
No, I'm just telling you. That's the name of your project, Ridikipedia. Turn it ridiculous.
You talk about how Twitter and everything...
This is a deconstruction. It's like a counter deconstruction. Like, they want to build a counter hegemony. I want to do a counter deconstruction.
So there's a lot of journalists who will write whatever you tweet as law. And so if you engage on Twitter seriously and say things that you actually mean, they'll write articles about what you say, or they'll take things out of context to make it worse. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm all for Biden, baby. 100%.
Oh, who's
Biden
not?
2024.
Joe Biden.
Kamala Harris. I'm tweeting things like, I believe in you, Joe. I tweeted one out. I was like, if we all cheer for Joe, maybe he'll send us the next $600. I believe in you. And so at a certain point...
No, you have to do jazz hands for Joe.
Well, here's the important thing. All of my tweets are 100% serious. That's it. That's all I care about. I think I've crafted a strategy that creates a paradox that cannot be countered in any reasonable capacity. I'm sure there will be attempts, but the ultimate issue is this. I tweeted abolish the ATF. I tweeted abolish the IRS. Which one of those, if any, are my actual opinions? I also tweeted, there was a study saying that, Fauci says something like COVID lockdowns. Or they said something like, we don't know if there's ever going to be an end to the pandemic. And so then I said, okay, then release all the restrictions. There's actual opinions in there. Which one's the real one? Maybe you can come to one of my, podcasts and try and figure out how I really feel about things. Do I really want to abolish the ATF? I said abolishing the police is wrong. What's my real opinion? Go ahead and figure it out, journalists. You won't be able to, which means any tweet ever used by any publication from me will be them publishing complete bunk BS, because you will not be able to determine which one of my tweets is real.
Yeah, I do this. I change my name when I do it. I often change my name on Twitter. So this has inspired me, by the way. I got to change my name on Twitter back to King of Your Mom, so that some journalist puts that in my Wikipedia. But he really does think he's the king of your mom. But because I am. But no, I changed my name, though, to Lames Jinsey. Lames Jinsey is my troublemaking. Like, if I'm going to say, very smart opinions, if I'm James Lindsey is a deplorable or something now. And so Lames Jinsey is my very smart person persona. He has all the correct opinions.
But by doing that, you're making sure they know which one is the real and which one is the...
Well, no. The problem here is that when you change your name, it changes your name on all your tweets. Right. So I do it and I make the tweets, and like an hour later, it doesn't make any sense. So then I have the same paradox. I just throw a wink and a nod to my peeps that actually pay close attention to me.
I'm also going to tweet a lot of nice things about lefties.
Good.
Just to be nice.
Throw them off.
Just to be nice.
Yeah,
but it's really, it's really
my
funny.
favorite thing to tweet about lefties is like, is what the president said. And I don't know which president. Some president said that you can't hate the haters and losers. You got to love them because they can't help that they were born effed up.
It's true.
It's
Love
not
your
their
enemy.
fault.
I mean, it does help even to win a war. If you love the enemy, you'll be better served at destroying them. If you were fighting them.
I look at it this way. I was approaching everything wrong. For the longest time, I knew that my word was meaningless for Wikipedia and for these journalists. There was, like the Zeppelin thing should have been a really strong wake-up call for me. No matter how many times I kept screaming I didn't make a Zeppelin, people were like, The Guardian, I think it was The Guardian that wrote it. So like, shut up, you're not allowed. And so it's like, okay, why don't I just give ridiculous quotes to journalists and let them write things and then have that be... Could you imagine the historical record?
I did that to Zach Beauchamp whenever he interviewed me about the Grievance Studies affair. He called me, and it was like the most leading conversation ever. He was like, wow, that's very interesting. I learned something new. I had no idea that was true. Could you tell me a lot more about that? And I was like, I'm just going to plant quotes and see what he publishes. And he wrote the best article ever. I love it. I mean, terrible. It's awful to me, but it's so funny because I know what I said and I know what I wanted. It's like
nonsensical.
He published things I wanted him to publish.
Right.
So I owned him, and he doesn't even to this day he has no idea that I absolutely owned him on that article.
I think there's two things people can do they don't realize: become active on Wikipedia, and then the interesting thing was watching people on Wikipedia who are like they have legitimate accounts and they're long-standing editors arguing over the philosophy and merits and the rules of Wikipedia, and it just becomes absolute. It's bedlam. Like, you can't use original research. But Tim Pool admitted it. I don't care if he admitted it, and they're just fighting.
Yeah, this is
What are you
beautiful
gonna do?
because I mean it reduces Wikipedia to absurdum. Like
Yep.
it's not even like it's an unreliable source like all your college professors might have told you or your high school teachers or whoever. It's like it's actually just reduced to absurdity.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is that like I haven't taken Twitter seriously in a really long time.
Oh no, that's key. You can't take the second you take Twitter seriously, you're doing it wrong. All these people are mad at me. They're like, "What are you doing on Twitter?" I'm like, "Having fun."
It's like a sewer pipe, like as fun
Yeah.
as a sewer pipe. I mean, it's not like
That's
you
what I
just-
used to
it just
say.
Sends
Look,
information out, which
maybe-
in the form of whatever you want to send through.
Said it was a sewer that followed you back in the day, but my other buddy said no, it's more like a dumpster fire you pack up in a backpack and take with you, and I thought that was the best way to
because
ever.
it's
Keep it in
still
your
with you,
pocket.
right?
Well, yeah.
Accelerationism, I think, is the wrong idea. Typically, people use it to refer to like physical chaos and violence and stuff. But I think like screwing with the press to prove the failures and the paradox of these systems, I wouldn't call that accelerationism. I would call that like it's almost like sabotage. It's almost like
well, it is. You can sabotage can be a form of acceleration. Like if a dam is cracking and you're like, dude, that dam's gonna break and kill millions of people. So you go and you smash the dam.
But that's not-
you accelerate what's going to happen anyway because you're like, let's just get it over with.
Well, so
but
I'm not-
then
I'm not-
you're the
I'm
one
not-
that's blamed for destroying the
but
dam.
I'm not talking
Yeah, I
about
don't wanna do
acceleration.
that.
What I'm talking about is so long as the media goes unchecked, it will not be a dam that's about to break. It will last forever and it will grow and then make lots of money.
I think it has
Now-
to break eventually, don't you?
No.
This crazy culture war
No,
thing.
Okay,
I mean
so-
until they drive people to kill each
Yeah,
other.
see, my usual answer with that is the truth is always going to win in the end, right? So it will break, but the Soviet Union lasted 70 years.
I don't think
And that's a long time of sucks.
I don't think the truth always lasts. I think the winner of the war writes the history.
I mean, reality is still going to bat last. The lie only maintains so long, and whether you know what actually happened or not is a different question. But the dam, which I'm thinking of it as the ability to continue maintaining the lie, that will give, and it will eventually the truth will out. But the problem is that like I said, the Soviet Union lasted 70 years of not that good, to put it mildly. The China's still going.
Yep. It's been a long time.
It's still not great. And simultaneously, when you're talking about something like a cultural revolution, which is frankly what we're in the midst of, accelerationism can push people. Like you're talking about a dam breaking and millions of people dying. Yes. Tens of millions of people died in the Cultural Revolution. You are correct. And accelerating toward that rather than trying to figure out a way to divert the course of the river is probably not the best strategy.
I have an analogy. It's like you're in a car, right? And you're like on an abandoned train track, and you can see that up ahead the bridge is out. And if you try and slow down, you might just go off the cliff. But if you slam that gas, baby, you could jump the gorge and then or
one metaphor.
reach 88 miles an
That's
hour.
what I'm going
and-
to say. You got to hit 88 miles per hour.
And then
Back in time when the
Yeah.
bridge was still there.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
you
no,
have-
forward in time.
forward
when, the bridge
in
was
time.
when the bridge was completed.
Even better.
Yeah. But you need to have like a pink.
Actually, that's a really interesting. In Back to the Future, the bridge wasn't there yet, and they hit 88 and then hit the future where the bridge did exist.
And it wasn't
Yeah.
about going super fast. It was just the right speed.
So nobody died. There was no destruction. So perhaps if we
No, the train went off though and blew up.
You're right.
There was some destruction.
So maybe
But the train was blowing up anyway because that crazy chemist put those pink logs in there that were blowing its gaskets and stuff, right?
So wait.
Great
so,
Scott.
So here's the analogy.
1.21 gigawatts.
We're all on the woke train, and if we don't get it to the right speed, the DeLorean won't make it to the future where the bridge is complete and we can all live peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
But the woke train is going to go off no matter what.
That's correct, actually. I think that's a good way. that was like
Pop culture reference.
I was like, this is going right off the gorge. The whole no,
you
and
know-
then it landed. You landed that, Tim.
These there's a lot of progressive pundits who get really triggered by pop culture references.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't have to like it. I don't care. Probably a lot of people might not like it. but
1.21 gigawatts.
Well, regular people understand pop culture, and it's interesting to me. Who are these progressives who like don't watch movies and don't watch TV shows and like are not part of culture? Maybe that's why they're in this weird space where they believe these weird things.
They're sad. They're sad. And
How fun is it to talk about Back to the Future?
Oh, it's
It's a
way
great,
better.
Great movie.
Totally, it was fun.
That was 3,
Christopher
right?
Lloyd's the
That was
man.
3.
3 was great.
Well, that's
I
the
loved
thing.
it.
Yeah. Christopher Lloyd.
He's incredible.
He's good.
Hey, so we're talking about accelerationism, the culture war. Do you think that it's like a Chinese or a communist intentional plot to subvert the political structure, one of many that this guy, what was the guy's name, the Albanian guy?
Oh, Antonio Gramsci.
This communist conceptual artist, Antonio Gramsci.
Gramsci.
Do you think they're using that philosophy now to try and undercut American society?
Yes and no, more yes than no. The infiltration of the institutions and the establishment of a counter-hegemony and a counter-state, which the peeps on the right call a deep state, is certainly something that's been an objective, that's been explicit by the radical left intelligentsia. It was definitely adopted by big players like Herbert Marcuse in the 1960s. And you're like, who? He was a rock star. He had huge followings. You're talking 1960s, and he could, like, you could pack a house at 300,000, sales of his book in the first couple of years it came out or something in the 60s. So he was a rock star on the left. He was mentor to Angela Davis. We're talking about BLM and the prison stuff. He was her PhD mentor at UCSD. And so it's like he's not a fringe figure. And he deliberately said in the 1960s that it's time for the leftist intelligentsia in the universities to start teaming up with the cultural outsiders and the racial minorities specifically to form kind of a block that would operate in kind of unison. By the racial minorities, he didn't, of course, mean racial minorities. What he meant was the radicalizable black liberationists who were operating within his paradigm, which was the paradigm that was identified by the Communist Party in the 20s and 30s as the wedge issue that would open America. So there is an element to where it's very deliberate. Now, your typical woke person, never heard of any of this, has no idea. They're just trying to be a good person. They put their black square on their Instagram. They're like, but I do care about racism. And they have no idea about any of it. Your typical professor of gender studies probably has a dim idea at best. Maybe hasn't even ever heard of Gramsci. So probably has no idea that this actually was a communist plot, although they're going to still say, down with capitalism, down with capitalism. On my flight in here, I was actually reading Herbert Marcuse's essay on liberation, which was written in 1969. And he's just like, all through it, he's like, what we have to do is abolish capitalism in order to make room for socialism. So this was certainly something that was in that line of thought all the way back, in the 60s, and was deliberately implanted into the scholarly literature very in the universities very intentionally then. So there is an intentional aspect to it. It's also modeled after what we are experiencing as a cultural revolution. You brought up China. The Chinese had a cultural revolution, the 66 through 76 or 65 through 75 or something like that. It was the way for that was paved. I know Mao was his own special kind of character, but the way for that was paved with the same rhetoric as we see in critical race theory applied to the Han race instead of the white race. Talked about Han supremacy starting in the 1920s in China, started talking about some people were good Hans and some people were Han supremacists, like separating that. All the rhetoric mirrors really closely exactly what was going on, and they started to create basically racial disharmony throughout China, and then that was kind of part of the grounds upon which that instability that Mao was able to step in. Who, when you say, though, is your typical critical race theorist a Marxist? Well, some of them are. I mean, you had the founders of Black Lives Matter come out and say, we're trained Marxists. They got caught on video saying that. Was that Patricia Cullors?
I don't think they were caught on saying it. I think they're proudly saying it.
Well, I know they proudly
would say it. It was like
a
public thing.
Yeah, I mean, and if you read their website before they scrubbed it, it was like comrades this, comrades that.
The Black Lives Matter fist is actually just the communist fist.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's not even the Black Lives Matter fist, but people call it that.
Right. I mean, that's exactly right. It is just the communist fist. So there's something very deliberate there. But again, your average critical race theorist may not know very much of this because they're just caught up in the theory. They're just going along with the theory. So there's like this lack of intentionality. But then you say, who's funding this? Who's dumping? Of course, the universities are giving it space, but who's funding this? And you start looking at the various, huge organizations that are funding this, throwing billions of dollars into it. You have, for example, Kimberly Crenshaw is she is the creator of intersectionality. She was one of the creators of critical race theory. She cites Angela Davis, who we just mentioned as a student of Marcuse. Well, she runs this thing called the African American Policy Forum that's almost completely funded by the Open Society Foundation. This is one of these big billionaire philanthropists that's basically dumping money into this.
That's George Soros.
That's Soros, yeah. What's the agenda there? Was he a communist? Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
Mackenzie Bezos also put $2 billion into critical theory programs.
Yeah, I mean, tons of them. I mean, the Oregon Ethnic Studies, ethnic math program that just made headlines everywhere where they were like focusing on the right answers, white supremacy culture.
2 + 2 is 5.
2 + 2 is well. That one's not in there, but it's in the wheelhouse. Yeah, but ethnomathematics for the state of Oregon, which just got pushed through by law, I think, into their schools. That's funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. The whole program was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so it's like, is Bill and Melinda, are they communists? I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe.
Can we just
I don't know.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.